All right, we are live.
We is live. Very good.
He is. Hey there,
It
folks.
is so. It's so good to be back with you this weekend, Santee. I'm really enjoying this. I hope everyone is.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I think some people are. Hey, Chuck Wagon's here. Somebody named Dummy Thick Dude is here. Hey, cool. Jeremy Gunslinger's here. Rusty Allen's here. We got a lot of people here.
Well, that's great.
Santee, Arizona Ghostriders. I'm here today with Mitch Herod from the St. Louis Iron Mountain Railway, where he plays Jesse James. Let's see. I'll post that up right there. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, if you guys are ever in Jackson, Missouri, and you ever want to ride a train and get robbed, because we all want to do that.
Well, that's right. I'm glad. I'm glad you brought that up because tomorrow, which is typically not the day we rob the train, we don't typically do it on a Sunday. But tomorrow we are going to go ahead and have an inaugural season train robbery here in Jackson. So anyone watching that's in this local area in southeast Missouri or more, because typically we get a lot of people coming down from St. Louis and then parts northern. Come on down. So there it is. Yeah, we'll be shooting them up, and Marshall Milford will be just riddled with holes by the time we get done with him.
Right. Well, it's been a while, so
It has.
It's good to know that that some people in this country are starting to get out and do some things. So that's good. I'm sure some of us who are in some states are going a little crazy. You're probably like, I'm jealous. So
yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we're not out of the woods yet, and the fact is, it's still going to be quite a few less people out and about, but there will be some as opposed to none. So
right.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have some representatives of Sweden here.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I've seen their website. Yeah.
Got Stephen Sheets here. Got Rich White. Got a lot of people here. Thanks, everybody, for coming down on a Saturday. I'm kind of feeling like you're all like a captive audience anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so I would just like to tell you all that today we're going to talk about history versus Hollywood in the wardrobe department. Which Mitch and I have talked about quite a bit to extensive amounts, to the point where he's really knowledgeable about Hollywood wardrobe and how it changed. And of course, I have some knowledge about the Old West. So I'm sort of representing some kind of boring Old West attire today, with a little jacket and a band collar shirt and my hat. And of course, I got my little Ben Wade vest on, which because I like it. What are you wearing, Mitch?
Well, I've got on just a typical white shirt, but I've got this nice silk bandana that you would find probably in any modern Tombstone. That's what a lot of them were silk bandanas. I've got your typical telescoping gambler style hat, which was extremely prevalent in not only movies but in television. And became almost the standard. It was very rare that you saw a cattleman's crown at all. And now, that's all you can buy, practically.
I think that, it's always weird when you see one of those in a movie. Okay, folks, so just real quick. When he says a cattleman's crease, if some of you don't know, the cattleman's crease, the cattleman's crown is that whenever you go to any store that sells cowboy hats, you're going to see it. It's the one with the dents on the side that go all the way to the front and a crease in the top. It's your standard looking cowboy hat. George Strait, maybe Alan Jackson, I don't know. All those guys wear it. It's not a bad hat. But whether or not they existed in the Old West is a little bit hazy. You can see some versions of it in some pictures, but by and large, I don't think anybody sat there and creased their hats perfectly back then. I think it was more like what I've got here, which is a dent in the top and a push on the side here and there, and whatever seemed to work. But in Hollywood Westerns, it was different, right, Mitch?
Exactly. And again, television, which was a prominent purveyor of Westerns. I mean, back in the 50s and 60s, oh my God, there were a dozen Westerns on those three channels. You just take your pick. And some lasted, as you know, like Gunsmoke, many, many, many years. And their wardrobes tended to be the same. So, the hats, the vests, we've commented now you're wearing a cloth vest, and that's historically correct. Now the guy on High Chaparral had a nice leather vest. Well, guess what? No, they didn't really wear leather vests.
Yeah, so the leather vest thing was really more of a buckskin or suede kind of thing that was really done by mountain men, and it did become somewhat popular. Oh, we lost Mitch. When he pops back on, you there?
I'm here. You're in the show. It says, let's see, are we still there?
You're still.
Are we there?
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. You're back on.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Very good.
Okay. But anyway, I was telling people that the leather vest is not necessarily an incorrect choice. But I think when we start looking at some of the leather vests in Hollywood, that's a different leather vest than what was really existing back then. Like, for instance, this vest I'm wearing right now, a leather version of that would probably not have been something they would have worn. Leather's very hot. People say it's easy to clean, but I mean, if you spill a lot of oil on a leather vest, it's not that easy to clean. It's going to leave a spot.
Well, I do think that one of the questions that you have to answer is, I guess three questions we have to answer is, why do we wear what we wear, when we wear it, and why we wear it. For instance, the bib shirt that John Wayne made so famous is something that is not something Jesse James would wear. It's not a Southeast Missouri fashion.
Really?
No.
You don't think you would have worn a buffalo coat either in Southeast Missouri?
I kind of doubt it. But for instance, now my job is to be part of an entertainment. My job is to kind of give a show. It's excitement, firing guns and smoke and flame and all that stuff, and banner with the marshal on the train before we shoot him up. You, on the other hand, you have the wardrobe you have is ones that go with your shows that your group does in different places and competes in shows. And also out there in Arizona and I guess Tucson and Mesa and Phoenix, you have actual competitions for wardrobe. Tell us about the thread counters.
Oh, well, yeah. So with every living history or reenactment group, you have people that we call thread counters. So once let me explain. I'm not knocking those people at all. Those people are terrific and they're needed. They're absolutely necessary. They're the ones that actually sit there and take apart an entire original piece of clothing and they say, okay, this was the threads per inch that they used, and this is the kind of thread that they used. These are the materials that they used. This was the lining that they used, and they recreate all of that. That is what they do. They don't look very fondly on those of us who buy our shirts off the shelf at Wild West Mercantile and Tombstone Outfitters and places like that. They don't look very fondly at us because the thread count may be different. But the truth is not all of us can afford to buy custom clothing. And not only that, but those of us who do gunfighting shows in the street where there's pavement and rocks and stuff like that, you don't want to die in the street in a nice $200 coat that was made for you. You rip a hole in it, that's it. So I don't know.
Well, there's many things that you guys can wear and out there that I can't wear or don't need to wear. I'd love to have a $200 rifle coat, like they used in Tombstone. I just think that's the coolest looking coat, and I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But it here in Southeast Missouri, when it gets 95, the actual temperature it feels like 105.
Right.
You can't do that. Remember, the movie was shot in February or something. It was early spring that the movie was shot in Tucson, at old Tucson and Mescal. So it was rather cool. But I can't get away with that in our show because ours is right in the middle of the summertime. And vests are another issue, especially the leather vest I had on last show we did. I'm just not going to wear that. In fact, I'll probably wear a cotton bandana as opposed to a silk bandana. So,
Okay, real quick. Hi to Germany. Hi to Denmark. It's really cool that you guys are here. Thank you very much for showing up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's that's important, not just from what you do to what I do. Yeah, we live in two different states. It gets 110 like an oven door opening here. You get more of the moisture and the humidity. It's hot. Let's just face it. Hot is hot. You know? Yes, in the Southwest, the vaquero jacket with the short bolero look, that was very, very common to see. Those were Southwestern traits. Those were things that were the clothing of the Southwest. That's what you saw. A lot of the botas, those boot coverings, those kinds of things. You saw a lot of that. Big sombrero brims. You saw a lot of that. Jesse James may have worn a shorter brim like you're wearing. He may have done a lot of fedora type hats, which were not fedoras. They were more like the Homburg, things like that. He may have done more of those because it was a different area. You didn't have the same kind of weather. Oh, what do you got there, Mitch?
Well, I can get away with this. Like tomorrow, it's supposed to rain, and that's not going to be fun. So most likely, I'm going to slip on this canvas duster. Now, it's lightweight. It's got a little bit of a nice dark corduroy type collar on it, and pockets and so on. But it's a period post Civil War period duster, and I can get away with it. But that's about as heavy as I want to go.
Sure.
At any time during the summer. Today it feels like 85 outside. Now that's not bad. But today's not a day that I'm going to want to really. I would put on an Edwardian coat.
Right. I noticed
not do it.
You're not doing it now, I don't think, but I noticed in some of your pictures, including the one that we did to televise this, to market this, you roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
I wanted to point that out. That is a very Hollywood thing. Not that people didn't roll up their sleeves back then, but that kind of showing up in a shirt and nothing else. Well, okay, well you had pants on, but a shirt, no vest, no coat was already a little bit on the edge for the social Victorian structure. But rolling up the sleeves would have been frowned upon. It would have been like wearing a tank top into a theater. Just you would have been snickered at. I think that's what I've been able to determine from all this. So it was a very formal time, And what I love about Western movies is that sometimes they show people with coats and vests. It's awesome.
Gorgeous stuff.
Oh,
great
yeah,
looking
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, you just got a couple more vests, didn't you?
I did. I bought some canvas vest per your recommendation because instead, I really didn't want another leather. I already had that, so I went with the canvas, and certainly it's breathable. It looks great. You're right. It has a lot of buttons.
Sorry about that.
But the good news is, I'm just wearing a shirt. It's not a pair of pants, with 10 buttons on it.
Right.
So at any rate, yeah. So I'm really anxious to get out with those.
Drew from Living History, real quick, asked about whether people traded with the natives, and yes, they did. I think that it at one point during the Old West period, it became kind of popular to have beaded shirt or beaded hat bands and beaded vests, and it was sort of like, oh well, look what I got from the savages, that kind of thing. And it was a very chic thing to do. So you did see a leather vest, but it would have been a beaded leather vest, most likely, or fringed or something. It just wouldn't have been the motorcycle vest you see today. So there's still trading going on.
Well, and the fringed vest, if you actually try to find one for sale, I mean, they're upwards of $1,000 for a fringed leather outfit. So it's very expensive to get into that kind of look and appearance if you want someone else to do it for you.
Right.
You and I can buy, I personally, I'm just, Wild West Mercantile is just the go-to place that you told me about. And yeah, I'm really, now Historical Emporium does have quite a few nice things as well. But they do offer a couple of different things. So you can buy a little from one and a little from
another one that I mentioned a lot is River Junction Trading Company, which they have a lot of patterns that are original that they use. So it's kind of neat to go there too. Some of their stuff is a little pricier because it's custom made, and it's I don't feel comfortable dying in the street in those. That's all I'm going to say. So,
well, yeah, exactly.
Maybe doing what you're doing, it would be more fun. It'd be kind of neat. So, tell me, you have a brown hat too, right? I mean, you do the Jesse James thing in a brown hat or a black hat, right?
I do. Yeah, I've got a dark brown one and a kind of a lighter brown one. I don't typically wear much because I'm going to reshape that particular hat. But yeah, I've got some dark stuff. I like to break it up a little bit. 1 week it's black, 1 week it's brown. Right. And of course, like I said, I've been doing this. This will be year number.
Nope.
Year number 4 is going to yield a little. I've been dealing with what I can get at Goodwill, and so this shirt I got at Goodwill for like $3. A couple other white shirts and maroon shirts and other shirts I've $3 or $4. Pair of pants, $4 or $5. You know what? But now it's time to upgrade. Right. The hats cost a little bit more. This particular hat costs under $50. It's a good looking hat. I like the hat. I'm going to wear it. It's a wardrobe piece. It goes out on the train. I typically won't wear this hat to work, delivering pharma, to Walmart stores, but I guess I could. But anyway.
No, it's a good point. So Mitch basically started a little while ago, and he like so many reenactors, if you're interested in getting in this and you're like, oh boy, I see some of those vests, they're expensive. I have a couple of videos on how to get stuff on the cheap. Mitch is talking about it right now. Go to Goodwill, find some shirts, cut the collars off if you're concerned. I don't feel that it's important to out of the gate go and invest a bunch of money in any hobby until you've sort of tried it first and see if you even like it, including cowboy action shooting and fast draw. Many people in the Old West hobbies will say, hey, let me lend you a gun for today. Let me lend you a gun. Let me lend you some holsters. Even in the reenactment community, let me let you borrow my hat, or let me let you use a bandana. Here's a good bandana for you. Put that on. Very friendly people will do that because they want you to get interested.
Certainly.
They don't want you to go and spend a mint at the bank. A mint at the bank? They want you to spend a mint. If you eat a mint while you're in line at the bank, no, that's not either.
Right.
Anyway, I encourage you all. You don't have to start with the most expensive stuff coming out.
Sure.
It's all right.
Well, and that's something that I didn't do. I already had the guns. Okay, so that's a major investment right there. Then the gun leather comes, and that's another investment. You don't have to spend a lot on a gun rig. This gun rig, aside from the concho work that I had done to it, was $115.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Well, not it really. But since then, I've lined it. I spent some money on modifying it, put some conchos on it, and so on. But like I said, those are kind of your bump at the front that you've got to spend money on. Like I said, the only thing that I can't find here in Southeast Missouri, in Tucson, you can find a cowboy hat in every Goodwill. Here in Missouri, you can't find a cowboy hat to save your life. So
you can on Goodwill.com, which does
there you go. But again, it came.
Wait, they're going to pay me for this. Goodwill.com. That's their slogan. No, anyway. They're not going to pay me.
You got to do what you got to do.
Real quick, somebody asked why you're wearing a white shirt because the white shirt they didn't have bleach in the Old West. Look, white shirts, you can find them in almost 90% of the pictures. They had white shirts. They had, I don't know what they used for starch and bleach. I will look into those things, but they boiled shirts a lot back then. They boiled the heck out of them.
Well, that's true. And the reason I like white, personally, because number one, I can get away with it. Okay. I do have a blue shirt and I have some maroon shirts, but the monochromatic black and white bad guy, Jesse James, that I'm portraying, that role, as I said in our last interview, is that I'm there to give the people what they came to see. They expect to see a guy that looks like a cowboy or an outlaw in their mind. So that's what I'm doing.
So you know what, that's actually really, that's an interesting point. So Hollywood took the idea of the bad guy wearing a black hat, and you know, it's funny, we talk about this all the time, but if you watch really old Westerns, 30s, 40s, you'll notice that the bad guy always has a mustache. That's how you know he's the bad guy.
That's right. That's
a
a fact.
The good guy very rarely had the mustache. In fact, I don't think they had mustache. So that changed as time went on.
And that persisted in television as well. As you might recall the episode of Gunsmoke where Festus meets his doppelganger. He's a bad guy, but guess what? It's Ken Curtis with a mustache on.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, we've talked about how, like in Bonanza and stuff, when they have those doppelganger ones, it's always wearing a mustache. They slap a mustache on. Well, nowadays that's changed. You know, Hollywood has actually become more historically accurate as the years go on. So,
well, just think about Tom Selleck. What's Tom Selleck without a mustache? I don't care if he's in the Sackets or what he's in. Tom Selleck looks great in a mustache. So you can't ask him.
Did you ever think of that? Did you ever think he have a hair lip or something, Mitch? Why are you so insensitive?
He might. Oh, that'd be kind of tough.
Yeah. I'm going to pull the picture of Whittle Dixie. Sorry. Anybody with a hair lip, I apologize. That was
yeah. You've been sensitive.
You didn't say it, Mitch.
Been great.
So you know, I love that you showed your gun belt. I'm going to show a gun belt here. I made this holster. This is a Slim Jim holster. This is probably, I've talked about it in my videos, probably the most common in the 1840s, probably up until the 1870s. One of the most common holsters. It's not like Mitch's. Mitch's, hold yours up real quick. Please. There you go. All right. So there's obvious differences, right? He's got a Buscadero rig, and if you're not familiar with that, a Buscadero rig has that dip in it, and then the actual holster loop goes through the belt, so it has a lower drop. This one does not have that. This just goes right through the belt. So it was worn probably pretty high on the hip, which does not allow for a fast draw compared to what Mitch can do. And Mitch is a very fast draw. So that's one of the main differences you see in Hollywood. It's still being done in Hollywood today. It's okay. It's become part of the Western thing, right? I mean, would you say that's...
I would, and it was so pervasive in the 50s and 60s. And we have a photo of the man that developed this style of rig, Arvo Ajala, and that's just his steel reinforced boot holster gun belt that he convinced the studios to buy because he could coach their actors and actresses into in fast draw.
I'm going to show you a real quick picture. There's Arvo Ajala right there. Ojala? What did you
Ojala.
say? Ojala. There he is. And what is his most famous appearance, would you say?
I would say it's the introduction to Gunsmoke. He has done a lot of gun coaching and had done quite a bit of gun coaching prior to that. But he's in the introduction, the fast draw introduction of the Gunsmoke TV show. He's the guy that is in the back, off in the distance, in black, that draws against Marshall Dillon.
Well, he can't be a bad guy because he doesn't have a mustache.
Well, yeah, but you can't tell he's so far away.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Look at that rig. He made that rig, right? I mean, that was his signature rig. That is his.
Okay. Yeah, as I tell you what, it's commonly, I think, pretty much commonly known that Arvo had a shop that produced rigs for Hollywood after he sold the idea and patented the idea of the metal lined gun boot that allowed the rotation of the cylinder of your single action to rotate while you were and as you were doing a fast draw. The problem with the rig he has there, it's a full retention holster, and it's meant to keep the gun in the holster.
Yeah,
so
that's the action you're talking about, right? Basically, the gun, by the time it comes out of the holster, the gun is already ready to
cocked and ready to fire. Exactly. So
now, in the world of fast draw, they sometimes put a little piece of metal down here so you don't shoot yourself in the kneecap. So, yeah.
Well, the idea was that, and prior to D. Woolham, who developed a timer for fast draw in that competition for that sport, the fast draw was Arvo Ajala's. Now, there were other men in his shop, Andy Anderson, and also the guy Alfonso, whose I believe son still has a shop in Hollywood, or people that went on to market their own versions of that. So, there's and then
come back, man.
A market difference between the look and appearance of those guns. But the Ojala rig was so prevalent in the 60s and late 50s that when Andy Anderson marketed his rig, which looked different, some of the shows actually went to the Anderson, and Clint Eastwood used an Anderson rig exclusively.
Right.
And so did James Drury and the bunch with the Virginia. Those were all Anderson rigs. They were not.
I think that there was a long time, probably from the 50s to maybe the late 80s, that people didn't care whether it was historically accurate or not. It was the iconic rig that you saw. I had one. Right. That's how I learned to fast draw when I was a kid. I had a dummy gun, and I had an old rig that I found at a flea market. That didn't fit me. I had to actually, anyway.
Well, who doesn't want to look like Yul Brynner on, in a Magnificent Seven? I mean,
I'm getting there, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the coolest outfit ever, black on black with a black rig and.
Okay, so that's something I want to talk about real quick, and I have a picture here. I'm going back to the old share screen here, so bear with me, folks. This is all right. We're going to go back to Yul Brynner. Let's see if we can find it here. Okay, so this is a picture of John Wayne and Kirk Douglas in the War Wagon. They just shot Jack Elam and
some other guy.
It wasn't Jack Elam. No, it was Anyway,
I think it was Bruce Dern.
Yeah, that was the whole line of mine hit the ground first. Well, mine was taller.
Yeah, one was Bruce Dern. Yeah, that's right.
Bruce Dern. Thank you. Yeah.
Darn it.
Darn it. So this is your quintessential Hollywood look. You've got Kirk Douglas here wearing a leather shirt, which without the vest is very tight fitting to his body, which was just ridiculous. And of course, on top of his leather shirt, he's got a leather vest. So that's kind of silly. John Wayne's got a leather vest and a salmon-colored shirt, which was one of his trademarks. So there's nothing wrong with the clothing that they're wearing, but you have to understand that that's Hollywood. The leather shirt with a leather vest is definitely not practical. It may have been done at some point, but I'm telling you right now, they're in old Tucson where they filmed that scene, I believe, and it's 100 degrees, I'm sure. So
yeah, right.
Camper with all that leather sticking to his skin.
Well, I got to bring up the fact that the color combination that John Wayne is wearing there is almost the same color combination that James Arness wore the entire run. Well, not the entire run of Gunsmoke, and that's what he wore from I think the third season on. If you watch the very first couple seasons, I know in the first, kind of like the Lone Ranger, they had not yet decided on his character's established wardrobe. As you may not realize, that have an established wardrobe. Gilligan always had a red shirt on, white pants, and a hat. And the skipper had a blue shirt on, white pants, and a captain's. Every show, okay? Same way with Festus and Matt Dillon and Doc. Okay.
Well, and pretty much the entire cast of Bonanza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the only one that didn't have an established wardrobe was Amanda Blake. and that's because she played a dance hall girl.
That's interesting. I saw one of my friends in here named Karen, who is a costume. She builds costumes. I don't know if she's still here or not, Karen. Anyway, it's interesting to me, now that you bring that up, that all the men's costumes were the same, but Amanda Blake was allowed to wear whatever the heck she wanted to wear.
Exactly.
Why do you think that they just put? Why did the men only have one outfit?
Well, she's the fairer sex, so she's got to be good looking every show, and they tried to dress her up in different outfits, as they did most of the actresses in all the westerns. They had to put them in different dresses and outfits per episode, certainly depending on what their role was. But I kind of get a kick out of the fact that I can imagine Amanda Blake putting a staple in James Arnett's pink shirt, and then where she could see it on somewhere, and 6 years later she's going, "Don't you ever wash your shirt? I put a staple."
Oh, you slipped out there. Yeah, I understand. That's Karen. That's the Karen I'm talking about, Karen McKechnie. Hey, Karen. She's awesome. One day I really want to interview her.
Definitely, eye candy. Yeah,
she knows a lot about this stuff. I did an episode on Odessa Red years ago, and Karen makes a lot of her outfits. So, very knowledgeable. She's got a house in Tombstone, of all places.
Wow.
Not just there, but that's so cool.
Wow.
Anyway, because she was the eye candy. Yes, Karen, I guess that's it. But Burt Reynolds was in the show too. Wasn't he kind of eye candy for the girl?
Yeah, but he doesn't get a Gibson. He doesn't lend himself to that Gibson girl look. You just not going to get him to do that. It's just not going to happen.
To show the Widowmakers, right?
Yeah, he's not going to have padded shoulders and 18-inch waist.
I started realizing, I bet you there's a lot of people that are watching this here who don't know who these people we're talking about are.
Well, that's true.
I've recommended it before. If some of you younger people on here who are playing Red Dead Redemption have not seen it, watch some episodes of Gunsmoke. By far, I would imagine the most popular Western TV show. And yes,
it's certainly the
same outfit every week.
Certainly the most long-lived episode. There were other shows that I really enjoyed, and one was, of course, Jim West in Wild Wild West and his sidekick Artemis Gordon, and that's a whole study in wardrobe all by itself. So
right, Nikolaj, oh, that's good, would say the clothing in Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns was more accurate than the clothing in American westerns at that time.
Certainly was grittier. That's for sure.
Grittier. One of the things that they did bring to light was this. They looked like they smelled. They were all sweaty. I mean, I used to think it was funny when I watched an Audie Western movie and he had a little piece of dust right there, or one on his hat, like a little strategically placed patch of dust, and that was to determine that he was dirty. But not so in the spaghetti western. It really made them look filthy.
It did.
Yeah, I would say that there is some. I don't think any westerns of the period got it exactly right, but I think a lot of them did have elements of historical accuracy. So, okay. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Mitch? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that, like I said, that the whole Robert Conrad Wild Wild West thing was kind of interesting because he really was dressed up in something totally Southwest with a vaquero, the vaquero jacket, almost a bullfighter type of outfit. And he looked great doing it. I mean, got to admit, the guy became a star, because of that show. But he's the only one that they dressed in that manner. His sidekick, Artemis Gordon, they put in sort of Edwardian coats and tailcoats and all kinds of things, but not Jim West. And I think, in fact, he probably had in the contract where he had to have his bare chest at least in one episode a week, something like that. Yeah.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the first times we saw that on an actor that wasn't a Mexican.
Yeah.
True.
True.
I remember even as a kid going, wait a minute, isn't that the same coat that the bad guys wore in all the Clint Eastwood movies?
Yeah. Right.
But he looks cool. I mean, the man had like a size 29 waist.
Oh yeah, short guy. I mean, short, muscular guy.
Was he short?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 29. I saw a photo of his they showed the pants of that studio wardrobe outfit that they were auctioning off, and it said he had like a 29-inch inseam.
Yeah, the tight pants, right? I'm going to go back here and show another. I'm going to go back and hope I'm doing this all right. Here we go. Whoa! What did just happen?
We're going interdimensional there. Wow.
That was strange. Hold on a second. Let me figure out what I just did. Maybe I had too much alcohol. Okay.
That's a beer on a beer on a beer. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right. Let's go back. This was supposed to be a slideshow. That's a picture right there of the Tombstone costuming compared to the actual costuming. That is Wyatt Earp right there. Oh, wait, no, that's Wyatt Earp right there. In Dodge City. So you see he's wearing a little bit like what I'm wearing right now. Not that the Tombstone got it wrong or anything. That was very correct attire back then. Anyway, we're going to go forward here because I wanted to show this. So this is the real Billy the Kid on the left, compared to the Chris Christopherson version of Billy the Kid. And you can see there's some similarities, you know. One of the things that's interesting to me is that when you see pictures of some of these people in the Old West, sometimes they look like the clothes don't fit as well as they do. For instance, Chris Christopherson looks like his clothes fit just fine. The Billy the Kid, you know, he's got slopey shoulders. That vest looks like it's a little too big for him. Look at where the seams are on the shoulders. They had a lot of one-size-fits-all clothing back then. And when you see pictures, they're not all tight-fitting clothes.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they are rather ill-fitting clothes, and you know, I think that of course Hollywood's going to determine what they want their actors and actresses to wear. They want the best look possible. You know, I bought some not really nice you know, bandanas here recently, and it's what all the best dressed outlaws are wearing this season. So you know. But, you know, that's true. And, of course, Billy the Kid never wrote any hit songs like Chris Christopherson, too. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah. Tony, I think that a lot of that label stuff is basically modern. I would imagine most of the labels back then were inside the clothing. That's one of the things we do to new reenactors who buy pants and shirts. We cut off their tags so they don't get gigged for that. And you know, you don't want a big wall maker on the back of your butt when you're going out there.
Well, certainly you want pants on the back, you know, on the back of your butt, though. So
yeah, you want pants, right?
Yeah, you want pants. Yeah. You're not shooting the thing. You're not performing from the waist up. So you know. Yeah, and you know, here's the thing about what Santee does compared to what I do. You know, I choose to have, you know, blacks and browns and reds and whatever, just because I want to. Now, Santee, when his group performs, he's got to carry just a buttload of wardrobe around with him, or know what he's going to take and know what particular act they're going to do, and dress accordingly.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, when you've got a group like ours where we know we're going to do one of 3 or 4 different skits at this event, depending on the climate at the event, the environment, you know, I'll carry some extra stuff. I've got a couple guys in the show who actually don't like to shoot guns. They don't mind wearing them. They just don't like to shoot them. So they're merely actors. So we give them this holster, and we give them a dummy gun to wear. I think you just purchased some dummy guns for your people, right?
I did. You know, we've literally been searching for people to come join the troop, you might say, and become a robber or even be a lawman. You know, whatever you'd like to do, whatever fits your pistol, you might say. Well, John Wayne would say. And I you know, so I've often thought that, you know, having a prop gun that looks real, and I introduced that gun to one of the kids at our meeting today, and I handed it across right in front of their mother, and of course got a rise out of her over it because Oh, so I've said I'm trying to make friends with you. I'm not doing well, no, but but seriously, it looks real. It just doesn't. Yeah, it's a prop gun. And for those people that either don't are going to buy one but haven't done it yet, or just show up and want to participate, we do that a little. We do a little bit of that, so they can have a gun.
Yeah. So if you're interested, in getting into this kind of stuff, if you've got a group near you, or if you're interested in starting a group, you can do it on a shoestring budget. You really can. Considering you have a gun, you got to get the gun. Yeah, that's. Yeah,
well, I gotta say that
this stuff. It's not one of the more ridiculous hobbies.
I gotta say that we've had one guy named Dave, and Dave, we found Dave a couple, I guess last year, and we actually found him. The train ride director Elaine found a guy by the name of Dave and a couple other people that were interested in doing a weekday charter. Well, out of all those guys, Dave was the only one that hung around. The rest of them out. Dave is kind of a one-off. I mean, Dave got into it neck deep. I mean, he went out and bought a couple of guns. He bought the outfits. He did. I mean, bam. He didn't waste any time with it. He was in it. And he's in it. He's in it now. So
good. And I want to talk about real quick. I wanted to mention, because I saw a couple comments. There's a big rumor out there that people in the Old West only had one outfit, and in some of my videos, I've mentioned that they may have had 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, something like that. That's probably right for cowboys. I would imagine people who lived in town probably had a better wardrobe, with more choices, like Amanda Blake.
Right.
Or
I can't do stuff. Yeah. Right.
Or Artemis Gordon. So
yeah.
The one thing that we take away from some of those TV westerns is maybe they only had one suit of clothes. No, they didn't. They didn't have one suit of clothes. I mean, some of them may have, but they probably had more. So you don't have to just buy one thing and wear it all the time.
Right.
Really
but that's again what television, what Hollywood did. I mean, look at John Wayne. There's just a few times that John doesn't wear a vest of some sort, isn't there? I mean, that's pretty common for him, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think. Well, I mean, he wore a little bit different. There was only a couple movies I think that he wore the same type of outfit, but yeah.
But I think that was an identifier. That was a trademark. And here's another example. It's Clint Eastwood and the Apache scarf.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen Clint Eastwood with an Apache scarf on? Well, at least,
you've seen him with something. This is not a great example because this is actually a handkerchief from back then. But that whole look where you got
that's an Apache scarf. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got that's a very Roy Rogers, Gene Autry kind of look, which you don't see in a lot of photos. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen it in a photo. But a short handkerchief like this, but this is a reproduction of an 1860s one. A short handkerchief like this could definitely have been used as a scarf or a tie. You could have worn this with a collared shirt and tied it up, and would have had a tie there.
Right.
I think that was done as well. You see pictures where you look at it and go, wait a minute, is that a tie or did he just use his bandana? So,
well, I think that Clint Eastwood, like his gun belt and Andy Anderson rig, he brought that into several movies.
Yeah.
And I think only as of the 90s or Pale Rider, he didn't wear that rig. But throughout his spaghetti westerns and thereafter, he did. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating, I think. So, for instance, in the movie Silverado, Brian Dennehy, rest in peace, was a great actor.
Yeah.
You remember, did he have a Buscadero rig? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Pretty much everybody in that movie did, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah.
Especially made for the production. The whole Kevin Costner double rig is in some museum up in Wyoming or Utah somewhere. Yeah.
Really? Oh, I thought they would have let him keep it.
No,
interesting.
He didn't keep it.
So in a way, all the Western clothing in Hollywood, well, at this point, a John Wayne vest is probably just as much money as an authentic vest from the 1800s.
Probably.
Because of what the movies have done for the Western Old West, rather, is what I'm trying to say. Western TV and Western movies have done so much for Old West history.
Oh, it's
I don't think that you turn damn people for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's developed the whole icon. I mean, the cowboy, the outlaw, the dance hall girl, those characters, those persons. That's what Hollywood has done for us, and God love them for it. I just love it. Where else can a guy my age go around and pull out a gun and shoot blanks, around people and dress like an outlaw? Right. Well, I can. So,
yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's an awesome thing, and it's a lot of us who grew up with that. It's a dream come true, right? So another thing I mention about the historical stuff is, if you notice in the video and in the picture, I buttoned the top button of my coat, but not the others. Even in that picture of Wyatt Earp that we just saw, and his cronies from Dodge City, that was a common thing. And I think it was mainly to show off the vest. In the Hollywood Western, that is not something you see. I don't think you even see it at all. Most of the time, the deal was to show off the vest. If you had a coat on, you were mostly a bad guy or a banker. You were a banker or a bad guy if you had a coat on, right?
Or a townsperson, yeah.
Some bankers were bad guys in some of those TV shows.
Right.
But you could go around with just a vest on. That was fine,
Sure. Well, and the leather vest that I wore on our last broadcast, I wore it like I normally wear it, and I buttoned the bottom button. That's it. It didn't get buttoned up. I don't want that look. I don't need it buttoned up. And it gives me a different. That vest gives the outfit a different flavor.
Yeah. My question is about gun belts. On average, how much bigger difference are the gun belts from regular belts? I'm a size 32, 33 on regular belts, but I found a size 37. I think that if he's asking if I understand the question he's asking,
he's asking size.
Leather gun belts. I think they tell you it's got to be 5 inches bigger than your waistline, or maybe.
I think you're correct. When I bought these gun belts, and these are, the company I believe is still around. They're called Western Express, and Historical Emporium has them. I think exclusively. I think that's all they offer. But these belts, yes, you have to buy them bigger than your waist. If you buy them by the waist, your gun really will be too high. This particular gun belt, I wear a 34 pant. This is a 42 belt.
Yeah.
My double rigs are 44 belts. They are not 42. They are 44.
Lower on your hips, right?
Huh?
Don't you wear them a little lower on your hip?
Well, you wear them right below your belt, which again is another faux pas for you guys out in Tucson, because there are no belts on those Victorian pants.
Right.
But there are in Western movies and TV.
I get the question occasionally that, not the question, but so much the comment of people saying, well, they didn't wear their guns low slung like they did in movies. And I'm going to tell you, there are pictures of people who wore their guns at a certain angle, not all the way down here like you see in some of these movies where the guy is banging around his kneecap, but to a certain angle where they could get to it a little easier. It's a natural thing. If you're riding a horse, it's not, but if you're on foot, having it waist is fine, but having it a little lower is quicker on the draw. So if you were really concerned that you weren't going to be fast enough, you might lower that gun belt down, and they did because of the pictures.
Well, I got to say, and certainly you don't want to go on so low that you have to bend over to draw your gun.
No, you don't want to do that.
That doesn't work too good for you. Now, there's only one. There's only one time and maybe there's more, but I've heard a major character in a movie allude to a tied down gun, and that is Clint Eastwood in Outlaw Josie Wales, when the bounty hunters are tracking him, and one of the characters say that all those guys look at those guys. I think it was Vernon said all those guys with tied down guns after the war. They got to do something.
Right. Somebody just asked you how many cartridge loops you got on your gun belt.
There's 18 in this one. In the double rig, there's 12, but 18 in this one. These are, by the way, these are not real. These, obviously, I can't, probably not a good liability thing to have these out around people if they were real things. These are.
We're not allowed to do that in reenactment out here. If you show up in a event, you have to have no primers, or you have to prove that they're dummy bullets.
This is I can't see it. I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, this got a hole in it, and it's got a primer, but it's a spent primer.
Right.
And so now here's the trick. If you do this with brass, you've got to put something on it to keep it from turning green, because within a week or two's time, inside this leather, they will turn green.
Right.
So the trick is buy clear fingernail polish, and they will never turn green. These have been in here for 3 years.
That's good. Mine probably look like they were in the Swamp Thing movie. Yeah, they do. Let me get one out of there. Ew, gross.
Ooh, yeah.
Nasty. Yeah. Well, I'm an outlaw. What do you want? Another person asked a little while ago. Let me just real quick see if I can remember what they asked about. Somebody asked about Johnny Ringo's dragon shirt in Tombstone. Yeah, that it was an embroidered shirt. I can't see why that wouldn't be authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
But then again, I don't know. I haven't seen an original. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, though.
Oh, sure. And the whole tie pin thing that Doc Holliday would have worn, and the manner in which he dressed for a guy who is supposedly such a gunman, he dresses pretty fancy for a gunman compared to what you saw on television. So
the Curly Bill, the Powers Booth character in Tombstone with the 4 aces on the boot. Incidentally, those same kind of boots were used in the movie
Quick and the Dead.
Quick and the Dead, yeah. Which
Appaloosa. I think they were in it.
I think those are mainly a Hollywood thing. I'm not saying they wouldn't have existed. The cathedral stitching, all those kinds of things. I mean, if you really bought yourself a pair of boots like that, then that would be okay.
Sure.
But you have to understand, these guys were in town. There was really no reason when you're in town to wear your boots with the pants tucked in them, unless you wanted to show off the cards on the front of them. Didn't you think it was funny that was the only time Powers Booth played cards in the whole movie? Was the table?
Right, exactly. And again, this is something that Hollywood brings to us, and has become kind of the accepted thing. A belt is a belt. Get a belt. Less ultra hanging ready. There's no. Well, maybe there you go.
Yeah. No, he's not wrong. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There was no rule back then on how to wear it. Just like there's no rule today. Nobody tells you that you have to have your concealed carry inside the waistband. So, I think it just depended on who you were. And first, let's face it. In a lot of these towns, the big towns, you weren't allowed to go brandishing guns anyway. I mean, there were gunfights, but you weren't allowed to go brandishing the guns. So,
the whole idea that every saloon you walked into is like the Long Branch in Dodge City, and everybody's got a gun on. No. Yeah, that's not going to work too good.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. But once again, here's what I have about Hollywood, right? A lot of these guys did carry guns inside their pockets.
They did. But they didn't slap them on their hip. They didn't want people to see them. They're concealed.
Yeah.
And,
And you have to understand, the Long Branch was a big saloon. I have been in some historic saloons out here that are about half the size or a quarter of the size of those places. So if you and I were to get into a gunfight, we would be within 3 feet of each other when we did it. So
right.
we would still miss. Somehow we would still miss each other.
Right. And they did. And they shot the person next to them. Oh my God! They killed the woman. What was that famous gunfight for the guy, where the two men face off and the woman gets shot next to the one guy? So yeah,
you mean with Bat Masterson?
I believe so. Yeah.
Bat Masterson and Colonel King, I think is what it was. Yeah. He had a problem with one of the. It's all over women. Women are horses, like Dirty Dan said once.
Well, here's the thing you have to remember: Hollywood dresses characters in outfits they believe are visually, aesthetically pleasing, and they're going to dress them. They want you to be excited about it, and they want you to like what they have on. And that's why those boots reappeared several times.
Right. Yeah. So Steve just mentioned. I'm sorry, I posted that for some of you that I didn't realize he used foul language. Sorry about that. He had a point. He said you'd wear those tall boots in town. If you ever see the TV show Deadwood, muddy, wet, disgusting, yes, absolutely, you see that. But when you see pictures of people in Tombstone or Texas, you don't always see them with the pants tucked into their boots. It just, if you lived in town, there would be just the same thing as Festus wearing spurs. Why did Festus wear spurs in town all the time when he only got out of town once a month? There's no need for him to wear spurs.
Well, and again, this brings up the point that I think we've talked about, is that in what we do, in what I do, my outfit is pretty pristine. You don't see any dust on this hat, okay? You don't see a dirty shirt. But in your characters, you do, because you are going for realism, and I'm not. So
it depends on the situation, but usually when we're doing a movie set thing and it's a dusty town in a Arizona town, I mean, they're gonna come hit you with the fuller's earth, a couple places. They won't make you look like you just rolled around in it for the most part. But as you can see, my hat's got some from the last movie I did, because we were really dusty in that. And we all died.
Really dusting it up out there. Is that the one you rolled off the porch?
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah, that was a whole issue thing right there.
Yeah. That was fun. All of us died that day. As a matter of fact, there's a fellow in here named Greg Wyckoff. He died too. He caught an errant bullet as a storekeeper and got blown back into his store. Isn't that right?
Oh goodness.
Yeah, it was a horrible, brutal shootout.
Brutal.
I mean, do you on Netflix? I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, yeah. So, as far as first of all, I wanted to point out, I did mention this handkerchief I have. I have the same scarf, the same bandana that Mitch has over there. The one. They're available. I think it's Wyoming Traders.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
Yeah, there are a lot of them out there. I've talked about bandanas before. Some people say, well, the bandanas weren't as big. If you've ever seen a movie called East of Heaven, West of Hell.
I don't know if I ever not.
No, and honestly, you're okay if you don't. They had these tablecloths around their neck. I mean, it wasn't just it was like they took a tablecloth off and they tied it around, and there was this big loop that hung down. Cracked me up. You got to watch the movie for just the tablecloths. There's a lot of with bandanas. People think that makes the Western character, right? I'll just throw a bandana on them. Well, okay.
Well, if you make one and hang it on the end of a stick, it makes you a hobo. So yeah, you're.
Yes, Stripey, that's exactly right. Neckerchiefs or bandanas were more of an out of town thing. They're a tool. They used them to wipe sweat. They used them to to rob banks. They used them to.
Yeah, right.
There were like a million uses for these things.
And not all legal.
If you're a cowboy and you come into town and you want to spiff up a little bit, you don't have a tie with, you want to spiff up, go to a nice bar, you could easily make a bandana like he's wearing, probably nicer than the one I have. You can make a neckerchief or a bandana into a tie. And you see pictures of people, and it's clearly what they've done. So,
well, the trick with a bandana is you can wear it backwards or flipped around, and you can buy a little, I guess, I don't know what they call it. But, yeah. And like if you were ever a Wibblow's before you became a Boy Scout, and you wore the neck piece, and that's what you had was a slide. And yes, you can buy those to go with these if that's the way you want to wear it. Now I like wearing it this way because as an outlaw I can pull this up and cover my mouth and my face and so on. But that's just I kind of like the look myself.
Yeah. Oh, somebody asked how big your hat is.
How big my hat is? This is a 4-inch crown, 4-inch, I believe, or 3 3/4 inch brim, 4-inch crown. I wear a 7 5/8.
7 5/8. Okay, good. Lawsonn here says Army surplus store selling Army uniforms. So what I was able to determine is that most of the Army surplus after the Civil War was going to the cavalry and the infantry. And they were basically they had to make new uniforms as well because a lot of those, they were used up. All the extra larges were gone, I guess. I don't know.
So the shortage going on.
I'm going to have 32, 33 for you. You're just going to have to use the difference.
You roll those sleeves up, buddy.
Yeah. So, I think that a lot of the Army surplus, there probably was some sold here and there. I know a lot of the gun belts and guns were. As far as the clothing, it was a tricky time. After the Civil War, I don't see why you'd want to buy a gray coat. It just seems like a really sketchy time to go buying Army surplus from when there was so much more clothing out there. But
sure.
Maybe I'll do a video on that. That'd be interesting. Sure. What do you think? I mean, you don't see Jesse James running around in one of those gorilla shirts, the ones that look like they're sort of blousy. Those shirts. Yeah.
Well, again, it's more of a southwestern. The billowy sleeves and more of a pirate shirt, you might say. Yeah, it does have that look to it. And of course, those shirts were pullover shirts, and they didn't button up like this shirt does. I just happened to get away with it because I don't have anyone, judging my costume. But as far as Jesse James, as I said, Jesse James is probably not going to wear the most coat that guy's going to wear is a sack coat. That's it. He's not going to wear an Edwardian coat. He's not going to dress up. Certainly not and face to rob a train. And that's why I showed the duster here because he was known for the light color dusters. And I think that, like I say, in the state of Missouri where the humidity is horrible, and even if you go to Northfield, Minnesota once, it's hot up there in the summertime. I don't care what, you might think it's not, but it is. So they're not going to wear a heavy coat. So,
yeah, that's interesting, huh? So, I mean, is there documentation that they wore those dusters at the Northfield raid, or is that a Hollywood thing?
I think mostly the duster portrayal is something that they picked up on. Certainly in the 60s, the spaghetti westerns featured a lot of those. It became a thing in the 70s. And even the Marshall Cogburn's Stockburn's deputies all had that mean looking look, and I think it was just I think it's something that, like I said, it's a lightweight coat. It's nothing heavy. They were there, so I'm saying it's probably likely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know that I've had some people say they didn't have dusters back then, but there's documentation that Fred Dodge, who was a Wells Fargo agent on the vigilante posse of Wyatt Earp, described his his duster being in shreds after the gunfight with Curly Bill and the ambush at which turned out to be Cottonwood Springs, not Ironwood Springs or Iron Springs. But anyway, so the word duster was used.
Right. And of course, the whole idea behind the duster was to put it on over a coat that you have on, or
right.
And the idea is to protect that from the elements.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, I think it's an okay coat. I love wearing my duster. It's great. We have deep pockets, all sorts of cool stuff about it. I just like the look of it. I remember when I bought my duster, it was brand spanking new in Tombstone, Arizona. We were getting ready to do a show, and everybody shook their head at me, and they grabbed me, threw it in the dirt, and everybody jumped on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was my yeah.
Well, and this white one too. When I'm going to tell on myself. I bought this back at the end of the 70s, so it belies my age. But this, honestly, this is the God's truth. I bought this thing. It's over here. I bought this thing, and it sat in my closet for many, many, many years because I couldn't participate in the robbery of the train back when I wanted to. I never washed it until 2 years ago.
Well,
this hung in a closet, covered up with because it was so heavy. The canvas had sizing on it.
Okay.
So it was very, very stiff and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was scared to wash it, and I thought, I just go for broke.
Somebody asked a question real quick, and I just saw it and I lost it. Would a mountain man wearing buckskin and fur be out of place in a local saloon? Were they town oddities at the time? Yeah, there were. First of all, a mountain man I don't think would have. So there was a mountain man era. That was before the Old West era, the fur trade era, the mountain man era. So were there still mountain men? Sure, I guess. But, you know, a man walking into a saloon with buckskins on would probably not gain much attention, would not garner much attention. He made people want to say what he does or is he a scout or something like that. There were probably town oddities. I mean, if you look at some of the pictures, there were some weird clothes people wore back then. As a matter of fact, there's a famous gunfight in Tombstone between a guy named Waters, who decided to buy this really outlandish shirt from France or something like that. Anyway, he got into a gunfight over it because everybody was making fun of him because he had this outlandish shirt. I don't know if it was just a ridiculous color or if it had a weird pattern on it. But they depict it in Tombstone, and there was a gunfight over a shirt. So
not a woman, but a shirt.
Not a horse or a girl, but a shirt. Right.
That's pretty rough, right there. Somebody wanted to shoot somebody.
James Arness's shirt. He got shot a lot during that show. How come there's no stitches?
Ain't that the truth? So I'm telling you, it's amazing how many times you can get shot and never damage that shirt. I mean, that shirt just pops up all the time.
Yeah, Doc Adams must have been like, who is your tailor?
You know, it's really interesting you mentioned Doc because that role, for him to play that role in the first few seasons, that was the most beat up suit on the show. His hat had a hole in it. His coat had holes in it. It was just, you really have to go, hey, wait a minute, that hat's got a hole. Hey, wait a minute, that his shirt, his coat's got a hole in it. And so they portray him as just the poorest doctor in the entire West. You know.
Well, in the first season, right? No, actually, he pretty much had tatters. Yeah. Well, people gave him chickens to, I mean, what you can do with a chicken? Can't go.
Maybe the chicken's got a hold of him, man. I don't know.
Yeah. I used to think about Doc Adams. Wasn't it also Doc Adams on Little House on the Prairie?
No, Doc Adams was it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Galen Adams, I think.
Galen Adams. Yeah.
Milburn Stone. I get him confused with Milburn Drysdale, but that's on the Beverly Hillbillies. So that's a character, not a real person.
It's a character, yeah.
Who wore two things.
Yeah. So Milford, who you shoot it out with,
Yeah.
He also sort of has a Hollywood flair to him too, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's another guy that we have the common interest in really trying to put together a real Hollywoodish, a real flavor. And yeah, he does that. He's got a double rig, a double black rig, and that's one he uses. And he's got a pair of 45s, and his clothing, he wears a bib shirt. So, and he's got the star, and he's got the whole thing going on. And and even when it's a thing for Milford. This is Milford's outlet. That's just Milford. So when it comes time for the Christmas train, he comes on with a tailcoat and a top hat and a red vest and the whole tie thing. It just looks great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's neat. Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people will say you're just a bunch of grown-ups playing costumes. And I guess in a way we are, but
well, maybe so.
But there's a feel, there's a look, and there's an attitude you have to have in order to do this stuff. And I think that's what we all aspire to do, right? You have to have
the biggest kick I get is even if I wear, and I've got one, I don't have to wear this regular hat out in public, but I've worn a weave Ambler crown cowboy hat that's made out of just a straw hat.
Huh.
It's a Panama Jack hat with a tropical green, band around it. And I was in a grocery store walking around buying stuff, and I walk up behind this little kid in a cart, and he looks at me and then points to me and says, "Hey, Mom, there's a cowboy." So, yeah, I just like that, that's just so.
Absolutely.
There it is.
I think that's part of it too. Is when you're, I have when I go to events where we're doing gunfight shows, we all like to try to look as historically accurate as possible, depending on what show we're doing. But there's no bigger thrill than when somebody comes up to you and says, I don't know too much about the time. I notice you have a watch on, or tell me about the watch, or tell me about why you have your shirt with no collar on it, or something. What's your hat on? They ask questions about the costume, and they get interested because those are things in history that they didn't learn in their history class in high school.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I always go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, if you're interested in doing this, the first thing you're going to do is, and the first question you have to ask yourself, what do I have in my closet? Okay. Or what can I get? And as your interest grows, that's when you start picking and choosing stuff to buy and wear. And I think that, I think that actually the thing we do and the thing that I do is, and I think you as well, when we buy something, we think, I'm going to look good in this particular outfit. So, you don't buy stuff you think you look terrible.
Right.
You buy stuff that you think you're going to look good in. And I think that's just human nature. So.
Steve Burton just posted something saying that inexpensive and historically accurate are opposed. Yeah, to some extent. Years ago, a guy put out a sheet on how to take your standard dress coat, your sport coat that you get off the rack, and turn it into a historically accurate sack coat. And I still have that file somewhere. It's off the internet now, but that's the way you can do it if you don't want to go and spend tons of money to get somebody to make you a historically accurate, garment.
Sure.
There's definitely ways around it. And I think that as long as you're representing the best way you can,
I think representing is part of it. I mean, not only to your crowd, but to yourself. I'm giving them what they think they want to see, and then what they came here to see. And I know, and I feel in my heart that, in my mind, that, I'm in there.
The kid comes up to you and he says, hey, Jesse James, is that holster what they would have really worn back then? What would you say?
Well, I tell you what, I can't lie to them, and I don't lie to them, but I don't get that question. I really don't. I don't have anyone quiz me on what I'm wearing.
Okay.
So it's not something that I've ever really had a question I've had to entertain. And like I said, and I know as well as you do, if I ever moved to Tucson, or we ever moved to Tucson, all these clothes, they're out.
Not all of them.
Well,
keep the bandana.
Yeah. Right. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You can keep the hat too. The hat's
yeah. Right.
That's okay. Yeah. Anyway, well, we're going to wrap this up, I think. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Mitch, that we didn't cover?
No. Just if you want to get into this kind of thing, do the reenactments, or even if you're going to do fast draw, world fast draw, or cowboy fast draw, the rules and regs say you can't come in shorts, flip flops, and a short sleeve shirt. You can't do it. You've got to wear a hat. You've got to wear long pants and boots, and you cannot wear a short sleeve shirt. So.
Right. That's absolutely it. Yeah.
And some people do when they go to these cowboy action shooting matches. Some of the people just show up in costume there, and they look great. And then some guys just show up in a pair of jeans and a hat and some boots. So it's all about what you'd like to do and what you're going to be comfortable in.
Right. I think and please, if you ever decide you want to try it out and you go join a group or whatever, you just hang out with a group. If you get somebody who's a stitch counter who tells you who tries to discourage you, try not to let it discourage you. Just if you enjoy the era and you enjoy doing it, just do it. You'll learn as you go what's right, what's wrong. You don't need an angry, miserable person telling you that you're not wearing the right stuff all the time. So
and you get to express the other you. Right. Every Saturday I get to dress up like the TV character I never could dress up as back in the '60s because I was 4. So. Or too young.
Right. You don't want to discourage people from that. You want them to do it. Because you know what? I started off with cowboy action shooting. I started off not knowing a lot about the historical accuracy of the clothing. And I was more interested in learning more. And so I started doing research. And that's how this came to be. That's how I got into this. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. Doesn't mean that they're right. It just means that maybe that little kid who asks you about your bandana or your watch or whatever, maybe he's going to go home and in 10 years he's going to get really interested in this and he's going to do it. And he's going to take your train and you're going to be dead in the street. So,
I do think we spark interest in kids. Yeah. You and I both do things that you really can't see on TV anymore. You can't. There are none. And you can't even see them at the movie theater, or very rarely. Now you might go get you a DVD, or you might catch it on HBO or Cinemax or something. But there's no television westerns. There's none. So we're it out in the world. So we're their exposure. So.
No, Grant, I'm not going to sell my open top. How do you know about my open top? Have you been talking to Dan Silver? Why does everybody want my open top? This is ridiculous. All right. They're
on to you.
Oh, yeah, they're on to me. All right, we're going to sign off, and hopefully in the future, if you all enjoyed this, we'll get Mitch on again. He's a wealth of knowledge, as you can tell, and he's also pretty to look at, don't you all think?
I don't know about that part.
All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you the neest time on a live stream. Okay.
You bet. We will.
Mitch, you want to say the line? Go ahead.
I'll just finish it up. Go ahead.
Well, please like, share, and subscribe.
And we'll see you on down the trail.
There you go. Okay.
I said that on one of my deliveries the other day. I said I'll see you on down the trail. She just closed the door.
Yeah, I've said it to Kelsey. It's addictive. So.
She didn't get it. So.
All right.